So the question is, Una, are you my last leaf? Am I your last leaf?
You gonna drop it just like that? You're gonna say there's a metaphor on that leaf? Maybe sometimes a leaf is just a leaf, sir.
No, not with an O. Henry story.
No. When a character's named Mr. Pneumonia, and I guess it's not a character.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. There's no twists or turns. There's no aha, gotcha kind of moments. Maybe a tiny little bit, but you see where the story is progressing, and O. Henry really gives you a nice sentimental, almost fall Thanksgiving feeling.
Well, I don't even know if that's how I would describe it, because to me, it's not the predictability. It's the, let's put it this way. I really like Edgar Allan Poe's The Mask of the Red Death, right? And you have a character in there that's Death that walks around and touches people, aka he's killing them. But it's argued, is he a real person? Is he not? Is this a metaphor for the sickness of the bubonic plague moving through town? Here you have Mr. Pneumonia with his icy fingers touching people. Is there really a Mr. Pneumonia? Probably not. This is probably a personification, if you will, giving a disease character-like traits of him, like, walking around deciding to kill people. But, at the end of the day, this isn't really about the disease per se, right? This is, to me, I think, well, let's put it this way. The opening paragraph, super kind of artsy. How did you take that opening paragraph?
I want to go back real quick to what you said about kind of comparing this to the Poe story of death in both these stories. I don't think that Mr. Pneumonia is a big focal point because it drops off the story real quick. It's there in the beginning and it's gone. It's never mentioned really again. So I think that it's almost just, it's a story, not character, but just a story motivation to get things going.
A MacGuffin,
I think that,
right? A MacGuffin that she needed to be sick for some reason. Here's why they got sick. I don't love the way that it was done, but it's fine, right?
Yeah, it's fine. And it's a very, I think, normal way of moving the story forward to get to the two main characters that I think that it's all about relationships is where I kind of took it to answer your question.
Okay, so Sue and Jonesy is how I'm going to pronounce it. I might be wrong there. They're from Maine/California, so they're almost like polar opposites of the U.S., right? Maine in upper right-hand corner, California, lower left-hand corner of the U.S. Couldn't be further apart, but it's their interests that bring them together, right? And I asked you about that opening paragraph, and the opening paragraph was very artistic. Money didn't really matter. You'd all end up back on the same street, but I imagine there's a strong flavor of what is man's relationship, woman, a human being's relationship to art is kind of one of the questions that came up to me in the story, because Jonesy's the one that gets touched by pneumonia. She's the one that becomes ill. Doctor says, you're going to kick the bucket, right? You need to find a purpose, because the doctor, of which who should be, really kind of, I think, kind of hard science, is even the one that says, well, but, she really needs to find a purpose. Otherwise, all the stuff that I do is kind of useless, right? So even he says, if you have a purpose in life, you can pull through difficult times.
So there's two things I think we can kind of talk about here. First of all, is I think that art is important to us, and the fate of Jonesy really relies on that, the love of art between her and Sue. If they didn't have this relationship, who knows what would have happened to her, right? Because she probably would have gotten pneumonia regardless and gone the way. The other thing is that, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, well, let me ask this question. Her main purpose was to paint, I forget the name of the bay. It was like some bay, some particular scene. Doesn't matter. And she gives up on that dream, right? As she gets sick, she's like, you know what? When that last leaf drops, I'm out. Kick in the bucket. We're done here. It's like she's giving up on her life purpose, right? And as a result, she's ready to accept death. Now, let's introduce the neighbor, right? Mr. Behrman. He's the opposite. He's all these people are artists. So I know the main point's supposed to be artistry. I get that. But it's about how art gives purpose. And I think you don't even have to have art. Like, people have a purpose sometimes in life. And the fact that he was just kind of like, he's at the end of his life. He's like almost like a foil to Jonesy and the young girls. Like, he feels like he needs to protect them because he was there, right? Like, he's their future. And rather than pursue his dream, he's just kind of chilling. Like, he's not pushing his dream forward, like, oh, I'll get to that one day, as opposed to Jonesy, who's giving up on the dream. Like, there's a lot to be said about the quality of life and longevity of life, particularly as one has specific goals to work towards, I would say.
And I think that's where the story is really relatable for a lot of people. And that's why I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very sincere, sweet story. Is as we get older, we always kind of mention this, is you think about, what is the purpose of my life? What have I done with my life? What do I still want to do or accomplish with my life when I only have 40, 30, 20, 10, 5 years left? And it's kind of, you and I have talked a lot of times about, how many Christmases do I have left? How many Christmases do I honestly have left, like with my mom or my sister or my children? It's kind of the same thing here of the fall. How many leaves do I have left in me to hold on until I die? Because that's what Jonesy's laying there sick. She's looking out and she sees this tree and she sees the leaves falling and she's like, I can hold on, I think, till the last one falls, and then I'm going to call it quit. And that's a goal. And I think that a lot of us have that goal of like, all right, I'm going to have kids. I'm going to have the house with the white picket fence and the cars and the job, and I'll save up till I'm, 75 years old, and I'll, spend the last 10, 15 years, my golden years, traveling around the world or doing whatever. And then that's snatched away from you. And we see that so often. And without that purpose, I feel like that it's hard to keep moving forward. And we see that all the time when you lose someone you love and the husband or, the widow or the widower is left, they've kind of lost that huge purpose in their life.
Yeah, the widower effect. We've talked about that before, right? Where
yeah,
if old man, old woman, they're married and one of them passes away, there's like a really high probability that the other one will pass away soon thereafter. And it's not, I'm not trying to make the case of causality versus correlation, right? But what explains that other than you've lost your purpose? That sadness, that melancholy takes over. And it's hard to get out of that rut if you don't have a purpose to move forward, right? And again, correlation, I think more so, but there's that book and a lot of research on like the Japanese island where people have the longest lifespans of all human beings on Earth, right? Like, why does this island
Okinawa,
have
right?
Like, yeah, I think it is Okinawa. And it's like the argument, like the book that I read was called Ikitai, which again, I think was a correlational book, but very interesting. But it talked about one of the things being community, having purpose, a goal. What are you constantly working to as opposed to just sitting there withering away, and that connection with other people. Right. Again, that's what's lost in that widower effect when particularly the men and the women rely upon their spouse and that's taken away and they don't have anyone. That's devastating. But I don't know where the hard science is in there. I don't think we've figured it out yet. Maybe by the time this video comes out, someone will have figured it out. But there is an element of something that drives you out of that melancholy, that sadness. And a lot of times I think it's connection. And I think it can be art and a purpose, too, of a desire to paint some bay, a desire to accomplish something. As long as we're working towards something, it feels like that motivates us and keeps us in a happier state and also prolongs life correlationally, of course.
I think there's a little argument here back and forth of almost the superstition of it as well. Jonesy believes that, last leaf is going to fall, I'm going to die. And I don't think there is any hard science to that. There could be a hard science to, we've seen that, talked about it, you just mentioned it, that, when someone dies, you lose your purpose, the broken heart syndrome. I think there could be that, but just to have almost that superstitious belief and then have a friend come in and say, no, you're not going to die, or I'm going to fix this for you. And then what happens in the story is the artist Burham goes out and he paints his masterpiece and paints a leaf, and Jonesy doesn't realize it, and the leaf stays there and stays there and stays there, and she lives, she survives. And I think that maybe that's kind of a second element to the story of that there is hope within a community, and that's us as a people, we derive hope from each other, and that's important to keep moving forward together as a peoples.
And I think that might be part of the artistic opening, the way the streets fold onto each other. Money doesn't matter in some regards. And I think it's clear that we were meant to pick up on the fact that literally art saved Jonesy's life. The actual art itself kind of tricking her, but then also the idea that she's like, it was stupid to wish to pass away. I need a purpose. I'm going to make that painting. So like her desire to create art. So it's like that. The art as an artifact, as another person caring about her. Again, that's all he wanted to do was protect these two women, and as a purpose, right? So I think you kind of have to hone in on that, though I do think it's a broader thing. It doesn't have to be art. I think it's a broader topic of what gives us purpose and what do we feel connections to.
And even to further go on that is Burnham sacrifices himself, right?
Yeah.
And you can talk about kind of the superstition, religion aspect of this a little bit. Burnham is an old man, and he's kind of a drunkard, we're led to believe, because he always reeks of gin or something. And he goes outside and he paints this leaf, and they find him dead 2 days later, and he dies of pneumonia. And obviously, we know medically he probably contracted it from Jonesy when he was in the room with her, because it's a bacterial infection of the lungs, but he gets it and dies, because old people are very susceptible to pneumonia. But it's that idea of sacrifice of I'm going to give up for the younger generation so they can continue on and be strong. And it's a little bit heartbreaking. And I'm a little bit mad too, because Jonesy was all ready to give up. She didn't want to live. And Burnham seemed like he still kind of, wanted to live a little bit, but he knew that it was for the betterment good of these girls. And I think that was I come back to that. It's very, very sweet.
Did he come into the room? Because I remember Sue went into like the dark room, quote unquote, to find him. And again, he was in the dark place. And to an extent, art released him is what I would say, because he did sacrifice himself, but he finally created that masterpiece on some level. Like I don't know. Maybe this is where that story comes from, where if you go outside, you'll catch pneumonia.
Oh, don't spread that old wives' tale.
So I'll say this. I do think it's a good story. I do think the plot, the movements there, but for some reason, the writing just didn't connect with me on some level. I don't know why. Wish it did, but I still enjoyed the story, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's a little bit of trickery, right? And there's a little bit of dishonesty there. And maybe it comes back to the idea of not all, sometimes white lies are good, and we've discussed that before. It's a very simple story. It's a very wholehearted story, and I think that it's something that a lot of people can relate to, and I think that it's something that would be very easy teachable inside a classroom as well.
Yeah, that would be a good topic for us to go into sometime, is the purpose of lies. When is it necessary to deceive oneself? Because there's even like a branch of philosophy where there's like some that believe like any form of a lie was wrong, that you should always tell the truth. And how the opposite has really been baked into our fabric of society is just really fascinating. I don't know. Someone give us a story about lies, and that's what we're going to do next. For right now, we'll wrap up our story on The Last Leaf, recommended to us by a wonderful follower. Cindy, hit us up with another recommendation. This was a good story. I really think it was good. And I'm not giving up on O. Henry because I do like his stories, but this one definitely, it was not the Mask of the Red Death for me, that's for sure.
We could do some Christmas stories coming up soon. Wink, wink.
Yeah, it is the season. Stay tuned to find out what we're doing this Christmas. We're looking forward to checking that out. So stay tuned. My name's been Una. Thank you for spending time with us today. O. Henry playlist down below. Peace.
Peace.